The importance of thinking and knowing oneself in Freemasonry. All of us here have gone through the first degree. All of us sat there, in silence, sharpening our senses. And if we relate it to the profane world and make an analogy with Masonic life, and a phrase that many of us have heard as students, when a teacher said, "Be silent, otherwise, you won't catch the thread." In Freemasonry, it's the same. We also believe that when we are invited to join this noble royal art, being men of good character, we don't need to improve, that we don't need to evolve, and sometimes, some say, "I wish to be like that brother," referring to their knowledge in Freemasonry, but they don't strive for it. Well, a simple exercise can make a difference: thinking. Human beings distinguish themselves from other animals by their ability to process information through the act of thinking. Thinking is forming ideas in the mind, imagining, considering, or discovering. The philosopher René Descartes said, "When I use the word thinking, I understand everything that happens within us, so that we perceive it immediately. Therefore, it is not only understanding, wanting, imagining, but also feeling." Thinking establishes relationships, conceptualizes them, and finds meaning in them. Forming relationships between various concepts is judging. Establishing the meaning of various concepts is reasoning. Thus, the act of thinking involves three basic functions: conceptualizing, judging, and reasoning. The Mexican thinker Antonio Caso said, "Freedom is thought. Thought is freedom." Autonomy lies in the essence of thinking. Based on this last definition, that autonomy lies in the essence of thinking, in Freemasonry, the act of thinking is directly linked to the postulate of liberty. Freedom to develop one's concepts based on the teachings received, as we are free and autonomous to speak and take positions, without straying from Masonic philosophy and its principles. Philosophically, Freemasonry shows the Masonic man that he has a commitment to himself, to his thinking, what to make of his own existence. Because when a man disengages from himself, from his duties, when a man relinquishes his freedom, quantification of his self, when a man forgets about himself, he denies himself as a being. The first degree is stereotyped in Know Thyself, a motto chosen by Socrates. The great thinker teaches the apprentice Mason that the first thing to do is to learn to think. By learning to think, one learns to know, to discern, to speak. By learning to think, one undoubtedly finds means and ways that facilitate the search, the inquiry, the investigation, the point of arrival. Thus, in this back and forth of thinking, in this back and forth of seeking, the apprentice, introspectively, will come to know himself better. To know is to discover the self. So, for the apprentice, the discovery of the self is self-knowledge and should lead to introspection, to analyzing his way of life before initiation. From then on, establishing the limits between the profaned and the initiated, correcting any construction flaws in his building, thinking and acting within the established limits, which can symbolically mean the birth of the new self. The Mason will be ready to search for the knowledge of the order based on self-knowledge and the death of remnants contrary to Masonic philosophy inherent in the profane. Know Thyself leads us to the conclusion that if we don't practice self-knowledge, if we don't propose to scrutinize our spirit with the objective of improving it, with the intention of refining our intellect, we won't project moral improvement in ourselves, and we won't be able to chisel the rough stone. The first degree is where we most appropriately use the senses of sight and hearing. Through them, we develop thinking, establish relationships and comparisons that will form the foundation of our development and help us in the next steps of the journey. Remember that everyone starts in the order at the first degree, and each has their moment of awakening because there is no fixed time for the journey. What must happen is the maturation of the initiate, one stage at a time, one step after another, and still, never ceasing to be an apprentice, never ceasing to use the senses of sight and hearing with wisdom. Each step of Jacob's ladder does not exist in isolation. It will always be the result of the sum of knowledge acquired in the previous steps. Practice thinking to know yourself, then seek the differential, the shaping of the new self through knowledge, for transformation, for rebirth, for the practice of true Freemasonry. Thinking leads us to reflection, through questions about human capacity and purpose that move the world. These are the questions that bring us closer to Masonic knowledge. It is the questions, not the answers, that make us evolve. The exercise of thinking makes you different, makes you new. Therefore, in the path of your Masonic life, make it a set of questions, not answers. Only then will your inner temple have straight, beautiful, and just walls. So, think, reflect, question, evolve. For giving up on Freemasonry is to give up on yourself. Please, click on subscribe, like the video, click on the bell icon, and share it with as many people as possible. You greatly help this channel to grow. Thank you.